Welcome to Dancing with Gravity, my podcast into the life of a juggler. My name is CYRIL RABBATH. I'm your host. I'm French, sorry for my accent. I've been a professional juggler for the past 25 years. This is episode number 14, and it's a discussion with Bradley. Well, Bradley needs no introduction. Everybody knows him. Bradley Cooper, the famous actor and now director. No, wait a second. No, it's Bradley the juggler from Chicago. Bradley, you're up? Yeah, let's try the mic. Can you hear me? Yeah, go for it.
Can you hear me in the microphone? Is that sounding good? I tend to get kind of quiet. Like that's, I know on the show you're like, I get like kind of quiet. Like once I my comfortable talking is like, all right, like this.
No, that's pretty good.
But then I can also get really loud too.
Yeah, don't get too far.
Don't go stay pretty close to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bringing towards you.
See, that's the. Ooh, this is better. Oh, there you go. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Hey, what's your last name?
My last name's Harris.
Harris.
But my
people know you like what?
It's Adita.
What?
Adita.
Adita.
Oh, go ahead.
A-D-I-T-A. It's your stage name?
Wait, are we going or are we?
Oh yeah, we're recording.
That's not a good. Is that a good way to start?
We'll edit it. It doesn't matter.
Yes, Adita. So when I was in college, I wrote a zine. Are you familiar with what a zine is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a zine. It was called A Day in the Air.
Uh-huh.
And so a day in the air, A-D-I-T-A.
Ah.
So some people started calling me like Bradley Adita,
like
a nickname
of the.
But that's also in punk rock culture, it's a lot of times people will get a moniker, a last name. It changes. Let's say you're in a band, CYRIL and the Juggling Balls. So then your name would become. Oh, that's a bad example. Let's say
CYRIL the Ball.
Well, yeah, let's say you were in a band, the Juggling Clubs, okay?
Right.
And then you'd be and you're the singer and the main guy. Then you'd be CYRIL Clubs.
Okay.
And then people would know. It'd be like, oh yeah, that's CYRIL Clubs.
Okay.
And then and then it promotes your band too, and it kind of becomes part of the punk culture. There's for instance, there's a band called the Queers. The singer of the band is Joe Queer.
Okay.
He also goes by the name Joe King.
Right. It's not confusing at all.
Joe King.
Okay, so can I call you Bradley?
Just call me Bradley. Bradley. Yeah, but my birth name is Harris. Yeah. So.
Right.
And I kind of like Adita because it has more character. Harris is a pretty kind of bland name.
Really? I think it's awesome.
It's it
works.
It's a good name, but it's like Smith. There's many Harrises.
Right.
It's very common.
Right.
So it doesn't. And Bradley is a very common first name. So it just seemed like.
I introduced you as Bradley Cooper.
When?
In my intro, I recorded it before because you're an hour late, so I had plenty of time to.
Well, you got the whole hour of. It's just been.
I have an hour intro.
Yeah, you have an hour intro.
Right. So you told me last time we saw each other, you told me that you were a juggling ball yourself. You're just being catched and thrown back in the air because you were juggling when you're younger and then you stopped and now you're starting again. So there's this cycle happening.
For me in my life right now, yes. My relation to juggling, to come back after an absence like that and kind of
How long was that?
Probably 2005. For sure is a good, but maybe even before that. It wasn't an immediate thing where I was I'm done. It was.
Yeah.
It
slowed down.
Yeah. I also sort of in 2003 or so, I sort of reached what I felt was my limit of
your cap,
of capabilities. Yeah.
You're not able to get better.
Within the context of life, moving forward, what a career looks like, it's not going to be in juggling.
But you were a street performer for a while.
There's no money. I mean, there's very little money. Yeah.
Well, it's fun, but yeah.
Fun. I was able to tour around the country
Yeah.
solo once, and then I accompanied friends' bands once as well.
But no, yeah, you don't make a living with that.
It's not a living. You know, maybe in a dream world, I could have somehow put a lot of things together, but it was not. Didn't seem practical.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be that. See,
Juggling?
We come from a different point of view. From listening to the podcast, you dedicated your life. I mean, you saw it. My understanding is that, you know, in the circus, this was a discipline that attracted you, and you saw that it could be a future for you, and you went after it.
I didn't know if it would be a future for me, but as I said before, like, my father was an example for me of dedication to his art, you know, and he is a double bass player and a musician, and I mean, there's maybe a little more future for musicians, but it's still really hard to make a living as a musician in this world, you know?
Very much.
So to see him, like, just practicing every day and never giving up and, you know, keeping on going forever, I never thought to myself, can I make a living by being a juggler? I just thought, well, if I dedicate my life to it, it's going to work. Because it worked for my father, and it was not even like a conscious thought. It was just like how it was. I was born in seeing that as an example, but I never thought of it. I was just like, oh, I love juggling. I want to live my life on the road as a circus performer, so I'm just going to do it. And I'm also like a little impatient and like not only impatient, but like spontaneous. I'm very spontaneous. So then whenever something looks good to me, I just go and do it. And I lack like the reflection of like calculating, is it gonna work, is it not gonna work, is it smart, is it not smart. It's just like, if I feel like it, I just go ahead and do it. Do you think the world of juggling opens up when you learn the 3-ball cascade, opposite to simply do like a 2-ball shower, which is a natural things to do? Like, you know, you'd give 2 balls to a kid or someone that has no idea. They're going to throw with one hand and catch with the other and pass it along and just keep doing this shower pattern, you know, like, which is the natural juggling pattern?
So I think only after you get to the 3-ball cascade, and of course someone's natural, and I've seen it before, is their natural is a reverse cascade, and someone else, maybe they develop that 2-ball shower into a 3-ball shower somehow naturally. I've never come across a onesie twosie.
Well, it's like those
but
women like on this island juggling cascade only.
Right. That's Tonga.
Yeah. So they
tui nuts.
Right. And I heard they were going up to like 7 or 8 shower.
It's all shower. That's
big. Like 8-ball shower. Whew.
It might be, yeah.
That's intense.
Now with these, you know, jugglers today, that the current modern European non-Tongan jugglers might have beat their record, but for a long time they were the shower queens. And because they were all women,
but only in one direction, in this very like instinctive primal pattern that we have when you take 2 objects and you're just gonna do that naturally.
Yeah, they didn't have it. Like, how did that develop? Where did, you know, it wasn't
it's
from
funny
the
because
cascade.
it did develop as a cascade very long ago, because you're talking about like, you know, 4,000 years ago, the Egyptians or whoever was around, they were juggling cascade.
Well, you know, it's hard to know what they were doing from that hieroglyphic drawing.
Why? Because they're they're seen from the side.
You have to look at it. I mean, but it's also completely static. So you don't know what pattern it is. But you can kind of see that there's 2, like maybe, I think they're holding 2 balls and there's one that's suspended in the air. Yeah.
But at one point in history, someone thought about not simply throwing and catching in this one shower circle pattern and thought about crossing it's really a complex pattern when you break it down, because I've been like doing a lot of writing and trying to like start my YouTube channel to like teach people to juggle. And since I want to start it from the very beginning, I'm actually breaking it down to nothing. And doing all that work made me realize this cascade pattern is really complex, because it's all about using your body completely as an ambidextrous, both sides the same way, where the body is not built for that. We have a stronger side and a weaker side. We all have a side where we kick, we punch, and a side where we catch or receive. Rebalancing that and asking for the body to like rebalance and make it so both sides of the body actually give as much power, and not only the power, but like has as much control and dexterity in absorbing the ball and receiving the ball is huge. And at one point in history, there's a guy or a woman, like someone would just like invented that, and then it became the basic for juggling, because now the basic of juggling is this cascade, which is not natural, which you have to learn, and it's not the shower, which is this primal thing. But I understand why. But
I'm not. I don't know if I'd entirely go along with that, because I mean, my model for how these things develop would be that there's a dozen or maybe 50 people or whatever the number is. Someone, a caveman did it 1 million years ago, but then it get lost, and it's found. I mean, it's
right.
It's this sort of formula that people sort of stumble upon, and then they'll lose, but then it'll be found again, because
Absolutely.
it's something that there is a natural aspect to it.
Well, but only if you push further
than the two ball.
than the 2-ball shower.
But I'm saying it's natural even in the sense that like a reverse 5-ball mess is natural. Like it exists as a formula. So it's out there, just like, in space, flying around. You know what I'm saying?
No.
But to...
What the fuck are you saying?
I'm saying that it's like a formula. So it's out there, just like it exists, Right,
but then you have to like go through many steps in juggling to get to the level where this can become real and achievable for you.
Yeah.
Because 5-ball miss is a good one. I worked on this one. It's like it takes a while to get to master.
Yeah. Yeah. But these, a 17-ball cascade is out there. No one's done it yet, but the formula for it, it's a very simple formula from a juggling point of view. We have side swap, so it would be 17-17.
Right.
So I'm just saying that these formula, the notion of the trick exists maybe even before the trick.
Yeah.
And let me back up and say maybe it's a skill, because I've been trying to say skill as opposed to trick.
Right.
That's
what I wanted to ask you. Like you were talking about like changing the vocabulary of juggling, like redefining the vocabulary and making it more accessible or more like on point, like more accurate.
I think an accuracy is a component to it, but I think on point, and well, then what is the point? I remember our conversation when we first talked.
Yeah.
You had done your 2-ball contact juggling routine at the fly-by-night.
Cool. Yeah.
It was amazing, and
cool.
Doing things that I was like, oh my gosh. And we talked afterwards. This idea sort of came up about this trick versus a skill, and the skill, somehow you might have said something about trick, or I would have said, someone said trick first, you or me. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, let's call it a skill. And about like jugglers like respecting themselves. So I think that's kind of like where I'm trying to come from.
But don't you think that, like for me, juggling is a skill? So I'm developing the skill of juggling.
Yes.
But then the term trick refers to like a one specific movement within the realm of juggling as a skill.
The way I would think about it would be that juggling is an art. Cascade is a skill. The 2-ball shower would maybe be like a micro skill.
Right. So you would just take tricks altogether out of the juggling vocabulary?
That word is a good place to start when we start thinking about how to think about what we do, and also about how to communicate with other people, then this goes into a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic, which is related. But you could also just end it where we are right now. But the related topic is basically the juggling. There's the juggler, right? Which is an interesting thing too, because the person who does 17 balls is actually living and they do it, but they just never showed it to anyone. Right? Because juggling is a solo activity. So someone could be juggling somewhere. They just never shared their juggling with anyone.
Well, although it's becoming difficult in our day and age where social media and everybody is like, showing their life
Right.
from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to take a shit to the moment you go to bed.
But hypothetically, right? Someone
Right.
may be out in the woods or something. I mean, hypothetically,
I agree.
someone could could be working on a juggling.
There is amazing jugglers out there that are not famous at all. I totally agree.
But maybe even people that don't participate in the juggling community. Maybe they juggle for whatever reason they juggle. Maybe they learned it when they were a kid, when they were training for baseball.
But don't you think like juggling is a social activity? Like
it can be. Absolutely.
Juggler has a tendency to like always like meet up in parks and meet up in alleys and wherever it is and juggle together. Because I don't know why.
So I'm talking about
although it's a solo activity.
Well, it is because for the nature
because
of the three-ball cascade is a one-person.
Right.
It's defined as
maybe because it's so lonely to practice juggling that you want to practice juggling, but next to someone else that's also doing it, so you don't feel that lonely. I don't know. I never had that problem, so I could spend my whole day in a room juggling by myself.
So in some ways, you were that guy juggling 17 balls.
Well, not 17 balls, but yeah, I was that guy. Just spending so much time just by myself, and I didn't really care. But also, I'm okay by being by myself. Like I have this nature to be like, I'm fine when I'm alone. I'm quickly overwhelmed when I'm with a lot of people. I'm not that social. And it's weird because I'm a performer. So I'm okay by being on stage and being seen with 5,000 people. I have no problem with that. But it's a short amount of time and I'm performing and I know that at that moment, everybody's watching, looking at me. And then I'm performing for them, and then once it's done, and I go home and I'm happy to be by myself.
Yeah, I can
Weird.
I can relate to that. So there is that kind of component where it is, but
it goes lonely.
It goes back and forth. It's a bowling. You don't necessarily have to have a bowling team. You could be the bowling alley is about to close. You're the last one there, and you're still practicing or working on your bowling.
Right.
Golfing, people practice miniature golf and their putting skills all the time, and that's a big part of the game. But a lot of the fun of golfing is golfing in a group. So
we're social creatures, so we're drawn to be together, I guess.
Yeah, so but I think there's something nice about juggling in the sense that it can be done on your own and you can develop on your own.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you don't need to know if you're just gonna juggle three balls. And I think books or the juggling techniques that I've seen until now are teaching people to juggle three balls like if you're only gonna learn to juggle three balls. And then they're teaching you four balls like you were only going to juggle four balls. And then they're teaching you five balls like you're only going to teach your five balls. So the problem with that is that you're not learning the proper technique from the beginning. And every time you want to make a step, you have to spend a lot of time correcting default and wrong habits you developed by only juggling three balls or, like focusing on like juggling three balls like you're only going to do that. My desire is to teach a juggling technique that is right from the beginning, so then you're learning to juggle three balls and the basic and the foundation you're like carving into your body and into your brain is already the right one for a 9-ball pattern. So then you skip so much correcting time, like time of like spending time correcting and having, because the hardest thing is to correct in juggling. That's much harder to correct a wrong habit than to learn a new skill. When you learn a new skill, it's frustrating because you don't know it. you're trying, it doesn't make any sense. So there's like this blurriness in your brain when you're like, fuck, am I fucking stupid or what is happening to me? But then eventually it clears up and you start getting it, and then you move on. Correcting a wrong pattern is a pain in the ass because you think you already know it. And suddenly you have to like backtrack and accept the fact that you actually don't know it the right way. So you have to relearn what you already put so much time into learning in the first place, but a different way. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's so much frustration attached to it because you're like, I already spent like 6 months learning that, and now you're telling me I need to learn it again. So I'm like, why don't we teach the first time around the right way so I don't have to spend my time correcting jugglers? Because I spend a lot of time teaching professional circus schools, jugglers of all levels, and honestly some jugglers better than me, like stronger than me, able to do crazier shit than I do. And my entire time is about correcting them. It's not about learning something new. It's about relearning something they already know.
To go to what you're saying about these corrections from the beginning, I think that's really interesting and really important. And I think even at that time, what we had sort of mentioned, it was sort of a interesting way of looking at it, was that you're interested in sort of training jugglers who maybe like jugglers 5 balls and beyond. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested in like where I am and what direction I'm like to go to help bring people to juggling and juggle, so that people could juggle 3 balls and get them to 5 balls. Mm-hmm. I would like to be a person who would say, if you're working on 5 balls, or if you'd like to do 5 balls, and encourage people to want to do 5 balls. Mm-hmm. And so that, because as we both had also talked about, is that 5 balls is sort of the level where you transition between a certain competence in juggling, and then you sort of say, well, maybe I really want to get into cigar boxes, mm-hmm. or maybe I'm going to go for that 9 balls. Mm-hmm. So when you commit to learning 5 balls, and one of the things I love about it is that it's also something that even with help and experienced juggler like coaching you, mm-hmm. it's something that you have to do.
Oh yeah.
So and that's a really cool thing where it goes back to that solo mm-hmm. aspect of it, because it's just you and those 5 balls.
Yeah, it's you against yourself.
And I feel like there's not a lot of that in some ways in the world.
Absolutely.
So that's and the satisfaction that you get when you know that you did it, mm-hmm. it's a totally personal
huge
satisfaction.
It's huge. But the thing is, and I know for sure they don't learn right from the beginning how to juggle properly, like in the exact directions, knowing all the right elements so you can build on a healthy foundation. There's a lot of time spent on correcting along the way, because then every time you want to go from like 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, or you want to go to a more complex side swap or whatever it is, mm-hmm. you're going to have to correct your direction and make them more precise, more also like correct the body. If you're not in the right position, you're going to hurt yourself. So there's a lot of injury coming up, and then you have to find out the proper anatomical way to move your body to stop hurting yourself. Imagine you teach that right off the bat, and you spend the first year of a juggler's career teaching them all the right parameters, all the right way, all the proper way. So you raise their consciousness so they start understanding their bodies, mm-hmm. how it works, how it functions, and what they need to do to be actually in the correct position. Can you conceive like the time you save later? So it might be harder to learn at first, because then it's very demanding, and then the progression at first is going to be a little slower. Mm-hmm. But then once all of this is incorporated into your body and your brain, and you just don't think about it anymore, because when you do 5 balls, you're not thinking, you're just doing it. It's like once you know how to do a trick, it's like doing bicycle. You're not thinking like, oh, keep my balance, move your right foot up and left foot down, and you don't think about it. You just do it.
But then you're moving through the environment. And you have to watch out for potholes or another car,
right?
Or another bike.
So you're not conscious about the action. You're conscious about something else. So it's even worse because you're not even, when you're just juggling 5 balls, you're not looking where you're going. You're just focused on like doing your juggling. So it's a level of mastery that once you get to that point, you're not thinking anymore. So if you're not thinking and you're doing something wrong, you're in trouble. But imagine you're not thinking and you're doing everything right. How much faster would we go?
So I feel there's like so many directions. One, the idea of that there is a right way. I think the most valuable thing that I've gotten from this sort of like the presentation of these concepts is just, it was sort of like an aha moment for me, or maybe not aha, but it was like an oh. Mm-hmm. We were talking about Anthony Gatto moving that. So I think that it's almost, the value in it is almost just to start thinking about it, and for me, and less maybe about specifics. You might get into the specifics, and I also kind of get a sense that like you're responding to maybe what I'm saying about like bringing people to juggling and getting them to 5 balls, and you're saying, but wait a minute, if they learn incorrectly, then what? Right? Yeah. So I've been a juggling club sponsor. I've taught juggling at summer camp, overnight summer camp. So I have experience teaching juggling.
Yeah.
You teach juggling as well. There's probably 100. There's other people around the country.
Absolutely.
So in the world, there's people teaching juggling all the time. There's probably also more people kind of learning themselves in a way. Mm-hmm. There's people spontaneously learning how to juggle like all the time too. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of tough because when we look at sort of disciplines, or we look at these arts or the sports, it's like we all. And then you could even go way and say like the when it's time for the hatchling baby to leave the nest, and then they learn how to fly. It's like, how do did the mom teach the kid how to do that?
Embedded in them.
So it's embedded, right? So that's almost like it's just like within them to do it. It just like happens. So we're somewhere like in between that in a way. Like we're. I'm like going off into like.
No, it's interesting, but it's interesting.
So what's instinctual versus what is, and then there's another question where it's like, well, what? I feel like it's important to also remember flexibility. So not so much like, well, this is exactly the right way that my muscles work or that your muscles work, but that even if we keep this in mind, the idea that as I'm learning something, I'm creating that foundation for what's
the next step,
beyond that. In a way, it's like, well, of course, like you're going to learn 3 balls, and that's going to help you get to 4 balls. But the way that you juggle 3 balls
is the foundation for your 5.
For your 5, right?
So if you have a poor pattern, you cannot just amplify that poor 3-ball pattern, and it's going to end up doing 5 because it's going to be way too wide or way out of the box, and it's just going to be impossible to sustain. So you're going to actually learn a new pattern to do 5 balls, which has nothing to do with your pattern you just spend like a year mastering to do 3 balls.
Well, I hope it didn't take you a year to learn 3 balls.
No, but I mean,
I'll have to say, you know what, you're wasting your money in my class.
Right. No, but I'm talking like a beautiful 3 balls, like where you can just.
I would hope to get someone to get to where they're not looking at the balls and having a conversation. Sitting is a big
it's a big one.
Important level for 3 balls. If you could sit on the floor and look through the pattern and juggle.
How long would you give people?
I think I would hope that with with dedication and with the right. With an instructor who's like working to get to that point, I would say like a month.
A month?
Yeah, I think that's possible. But it's got to be someone who's dedicated, who wants to do this.
Oh man, I don't think so. I think if you start from nothing, I think a month is really short.
Yeah, okay. I mean, maybe a month is sort of like what you could hope for, and if they don't get it by 2 months, then
No, I don't agree with you. I think people are so different. That's the thing also. It's like when I'm saying the perfect pattern, I'm not saying like there's one perfect pattern for everybody. I'm talking everybody has their own perfect pattern, right?
that fits them.
That fits them, that fits their body, their flexibility, the way their body is shaped, the way their muscle function, the way we're all different. We all have very different bodies,
Right.
with very different capacities. You know, like we're not all equal at all physically and mentally. You know, like we're very different. Like we're wired differently. You can see it in kids. Like when kids grow up, some kids develop first some motricity, agility, and
What's that word?
motricity.
What's the motricity?
Motricity is like the capacity to move your body in different ways. So when you're a kid, you know, you learn how to crawl, and then you learn how to walk. You don't learn to walk before you crawl. You know, like there's steps in learning the motricity of the body. So how you move your body around and the patterns.
How do you spell that?
Motricity.
M-O?
It's a French word, motricity.
Oh, it's not
But
in English?
Yeah, it is in English, but nobody knows it.
M-O-R-T.
I
R. M-O-R-T.
Mo-tree.
Oh, M-O.
T-R-I.
M-O-T. M-O-T.
Yeah.
R-I.
Yeah. C-I.
C-I-T-Y. Motricity. Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's very important. It's all about like learning to move and coordinate your body.
Oh, like
And
motor skill.
Motricity, how to
Motricity.
move, the motor pattern of your body. Yeah. And so, you know, some kids develop that before they develop some calculating skills in their brain to learn 2 + 2 or whatever. And some kids are the opposite. So that's why, well, that's another discussion, but why the school system is still bullshit, because we're not taking that into consideration. We want the kids to all know how to jump by this age and 2 + 2 by this age, but actually kids don't develop the same way. There's things that comes before another, and it's just random. It depends who you are.
So this is, in some ways, this kind of circles back to something that we didn't touch on, or we were getting to and then got tangential, but the idea of remember we were talking about the solo juggler, the individual juggler. Then there's the juggling community. So the juggling community that's kind of like the first grade, like these grades, the schools and stuff, because it has, I mean, you know, they say like herding cats. You know, you ever hear that expression?
No.
So the expression, it's like herding cats, because can you herd cats?
No.
Like, yeah. How could you do that?
Yeah.
They won't. Their nature is to not be able to be herded.
Yeah.
So jugglers, in a way, like having a juggling community, it's like herding cats, because every juggler is so unique and they're all going in their own direction, right? But at the same time, jugglers have found a way to sort of herd themselves a little bit. And when you get groups, right? Groups are, it almost the individual, which is always, right? So there's always the individual and the group. That's always a dynamic, because we are social. If we had to live in the universe completely alone, we wouldn't last long, right? We need people. We need each other. So once you have those groups, though, right? Then that becomes its own organism. They have their own limitations that the individual will be frustrated by, because they're not like the kid in second grade who can do fifth grade math is bored in the second grade.
Right.
And the teacher doesn't have time to keep that student interested. And then now they're a discipline problem. So that and then you go down all these roads. It's like, but the kid was
so gifted
at math.
Absolutely.
So that's always the problem of the group, and it's
also the problem of having a dogma in teaching juggling. That's why that's why I think your time period is way too restrictive, because I think you're right. Like the people that are gifted or that have everything in place for some reason are totally going to get there in a month. I probably got there in like 3 days, because I was gifted when I started.
You went after it. It became something that you
and also I was gifted.
You needed to do it in your mind.
I was coordinated,
yes.
Like from the beginning.
Yeah.
I was always coordinated. Like this was always part of me. Being interested in using the right as much as the left, and all those things, like this curiosity of the proper curiosity you need to be a good juggler. I had this when I was born, for whatever reason. So it was just made for me in a sense. Mm-hmm. Imagine someone that's on the opposite of the spectrum. And I meet people like that. And they tell me, I'll never know how to juggle. And I'm like, there's no such thing. Everybody can juggle. Unless you have like bad motricity problems because you're impaired and you're a person with disabilities then I understand. Unless you're really like medically a person with disabilities, you're going to learn to juggle.
Yeah, 98%, or maybe someone who's of such advanced age as well, it might be too difficult.
Well, yeah, but then it becomes like, you can't move your arm. Yeah, well, then I guess I can't teach you to juggle, obviously. But that's why I was curious about asking you like the time period, because I have like much greater time periods. I'm like for what you said, like juggling, sitting down, looking through your pattern, I'm like 6 months, a year. I'm like, it doesn't matter how long it takes, because some people might have to build some skills in their brain or in their body, regarding agility, dexterity, motricity, being able to like coordination that they might not have. And it might take a long period of time to like set those standards. But then once those are in place and properly in place, the same person that took like a year to learn 3 balls might go much faster because they have all that. You know what I mean? When I say a month, 2 months, it's kind of like throwing like a number out there. It was something I would be hopeful for. Like if someone were to take a series of classes or instruction with me, I'd be like, wow, this is good. Like if every student could get on a track like that, and I'm going to give them all the pointers that they need, and if they were to do those things, and if they were to incorporate them and to own them, but also figure it out for yourself, like you're saying too. I think that's a big part of the coaching role is providing perspectives for the student, for the person learning, and then also encouraging them to kind of figure it out for themselves too. Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
But so that hopefully maybe someone will come to a class and say, I'm having trouble with my left hand over the top. What can I do about it? Mm-hmm. Or I find that when I'm walking forward while I'm doing 3 balls. What can I do about it? Mm-hmm. So these, and I just tell them like, just keep walking. But again, this in some ways it goes back to the utility. It's like, well, why am I juggling?
Right.
How am I juggling? What is this for?
Why are we juggling? Why are you juggling?
It was satisfying to me. It was.
Why did you start again to juggle after stopping for like 10, 15 years?
Well, it was the time. This was a time when it felt like it was the right time. Things in my life were changing in a way where it seemed like this would be something that would be good for me to do. And
for what?
For health.
Health?
Yeah. It's
health, mental health, physical health?
Well, all types of health. I think juggling is intrinsically healthy activity when it's done with purpose. Mm-hmm. For health.
So what's the purpose?
Right. That was good. That was a good around there. So that maybe the purpose is to be healthy,
to be smarter, to be more agile, to be to learn to know more your body, to develop your body in different ways, to...
What if all those are components of health?
Yeah.
So no juggling chainsaws. It's just not healthy.
Well, this is just a trick. This is a trick.
That's a trick. Right. So
this one is not a skill. This one is a trick.
It's clearly a skill.
Whoever does that.
You know, the chain is actually, you know, looping around at a high velocity. So you're juggling something that has a different gravitational center and everything, and centripetal forces. So it actually is a skill.
Right. That's such a drama for me, this chainsaw thing, because then it puts in the mind of the public this crazy, over-the-top, deathly picture, and then that becomes...
Deathly...
Picture?
Picture. Oh, picture. Okay.
Like
a deathly picture. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, no, like some sort of, you know, in people's mind, then they have this picture of like, oh, yeah, this is like, ooh...
Juggling is dangerous.
Yeah, it's pushing the thing to the max, you know. It's like if you miss, you cut your hand. And it's like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck? It makes me mad. It pisses me off because I'm like, I see juggling as an art form. Not you're going to cut your hand. When you go to see an opera, a ballet, and it moves you, because... It did move me when I saw ballet. When I see a beautiful ballet and it's like modern and there's those dancers that spent like 20 years perfecting their art so they can do like 15 pirouettes and jumps and defy gravity with their bodies. I don't need to know that if they fall on the ground, they're gonna cut their leg. That makes me feel better. Or it does not help me appreciate their art, knowing that they're going to cut their leg if they fall. You know? It would actually remove some of my appreciation for the art. I know that they might, you know, like hurt their ankle if they do a false movement during the choreography, but I also know and can see that they're so fucking good at what they're doing that they know what they're doing. They're not going to hurt themselves. But when you're throwing a fucking chainsaw in the air, you're clearly putting the picture out there being like, hey, if I miss, I cut my arm. How does that make it more enjoyable? Why would you enjoy more knowing that you're going to cut your arm if you miss?
What? Have you explored the world of dangerous juggling?
Well, I juggle fire, but it's not dangerous.
Right.
People think it's dangerous, but it's not dangerous.
Exactly.
It's just an illusion.
I think that...
The fucking chainsaw is dangerous.
I think that the people who juggle chainsaws, they've gotten to the point where it's not... It's clearly more dangerous. I mean, but for them, I think that they're...
No, I know that. I know that for them, they're mastering it. I know that. But I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the picture they're putting out there for the rest of the world, for the audience, for the public, for the public to see. And this changes the perception of juggling.
Right.
Because now the first thing people ask me when they learn that I'm a juggler and that I'm like, oh, you're in the Cirque du Soleil, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you must be a good juggler. Do you juggle chainsaw? What the fuck, man? No, I juggle 10 balls and I do beautiful, soft, etherical juggling with two that brings you into a dream world that you're going to be wowed. I'm going to take your breath away, like when you see a beautiful dancer doing a beautiful choreography. It's not about fucking chainsaw, or it's, the chainsaw thing brings it more into the performance world of like sport, or like
I like how you
danger sport, like racing, or like something like that.
Like for instance,
like if you're racing and then you're like, if you fuck up your racing, you're gonna die, and it's not a sport, it's an art.
But then it also goes back to that thing. I think utility will always be an important component, because if it's not something that you need, then maybe it's not it's not a problem. Maybe it's something, not something. You know what I'm saying? If he doesn't need that ability, then
No, and well, what you're saying actually brings me back to more like juggling is not necessary, and maybe that's why juggling is an art form.
So I think there might have been some confusion about the art of juggling. So it's the art again. Like remember we were talking about with juggling, the art, the skill, the micro skill. So with
but I think you're like digressing from the meaning of art. What do you say when you say art? You know, when I say art, I have in my head music, sculpture. Like going to the Art Institute here in Chicago and spending 2 hours looking at art, looking at paintings, looking at sculptures, looking at photos.
Sure. So, and those are all static.
Those are static, but I mean, like, and then you can also go to the theater, and then you're going to see a theater piece, and you're going to see art. You see actors interpreting and whatever. And so for juggling, there's the space where you can actually be an artist and be seen and be performing and be an artist. And then, yes, juggling is an art form.
So I guess the way I'm looking at it is that if they think of themselves as artists, I guess it would be up to them,
right,
to do that.
And I'm pushing you because that's the exact same dilemma that we have in the circus, is that we're also athletes. I'm also an athlete because I have to maintain my body at a certain level of health and performance. And I think that's one of the things that tickles me in the juggling community, is that I see a lot of jugglers that are juggling as athletes before they're juggling as artists. And that happened a lot in the US, especially with jugglers that are really good but are not performers. They're mostly athletes. And they're really good athletes. They're like pushing the boundaries and they're doing amazing things, probably much better than I do. But they're not artists because they're not bringing that form into the art space. You know, they're into a theater, into a circus, into a stage where they can actually create art.
So it seems to me
it's ambivalent.
The athlete, it seems, is almost as if. Okay, so let's just say like when you're the person who runs around the arena, right, and then they as fast as possible is like a sprinter.
Right.
Okay, it's like in the Olympics.
Yeah.
The person they train. They get on the line. They're gonna try to be faster than
the
everyone
other
else,
guys,
and also beat their own record.
Right.
So again,
they're athletes.
These are athletes, but the idea is that there's like maybe I'm trying to get at a definition for athlete because it's about
performance.
It seems to be about quantity.
Right.
Right. So it's a not qualitative. So
it is qualitative too.
What's qualitative about athleticism?
Well, look at the sprinter that is going to win, and look at his movement. He looks like a beautiful gazelle,
But to me, that's a result of the motion towards that quantity.
No, I don't think so, because I think they have an intention, and they have a way to be in their body and to master their body that is quality over quantity. Then there's the quantity to repeat enough the motion so they become good enough, but there's a quality in the way they execute the action. So it's not a difference of quality versus quantity, because you can have both quality and quantity in an athlete and in an artist.
Yes. But the goal is quantitative. The goal is
right.
That's an athlete. The goal, they have a quality.
Well, the ultimate goal is the competition. That is gonna, make.
So is the person who first ran the Olympics, right? Marathon. He carried the torch. He was not competing against anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Is he an athlete?
I don't know the guy. I don't know.
I mean, by the way we think of it, So that's
For me,
that's the
an
story.
artist is there's an expression, and that's the difference between the athlete and the artist. Is that the artist is expressing something. So the artist is using the technique, the juggling or whatever it is, to say something, to express something, to have a message convey. And it can be like a clear message, or it can be like a very emotional message. It can be like an experience. It doesn't have to be like a political message or whatever. It's like, but there is a voice. There is something. There is something that the artist is conveying to the audience, is sharing. So in a sense, for me, the tool, like the juggling, whatever is the technique you're using, becomes a tool, nearly becomes a pretext. It becomes a pretext for the human being to share something with the audience. So the main focus is not anymore on the technique. It is on the message. It is on what is being shared right now. So for an athlete, the main purpose is the technique in of itself. There's nothing else but the technique. There's nothing else but running as fast as possible, doing whatever the best as possible, and then that is the end goal of this moment in time. The artist, on the other hand, that technique is only a pretext to be there on stage and share with the audience and have a moment of symbiosis and share whatever the artist wants to share with the audience. So that's the difference. But we're using the same tool. We're using the same thing. So for juggling, and that's what's fantastic in juggling, is that juggling can be both, and probably many other things. But if you push it at a very high level, it can be both a performance, a pure sport, like an athlete doing a sport performance, or an art form where there's like emotion and there's a whole like when I say message, it's not like about words or letters, it's really like about an expression.
Like you were saying, like in ballet, I don't think there's any words, but it's just
exactly.
There's music and there's
emotion and there's something, but the technique is amazing because there's no Olympic Games for dancers, but there should be, because look at them, like
athleticism from the point of
athletic performance is like
This is also in some ways a contrast between us, because you are the athlete, and for me, I would say I'm not an athlete. I don't even know to what extent I am an artist of it. I would say that I work at the art of juggling side of it. But
that's why I was asking you, what are you getting out of it?
What do I get out of juggling?
Yeah, because I know why I'm juggling. I'm juggling because that's my art form and that's my way to express myself. So every day I go and I practice 2-3 hours because I need to maintain that tools that allows me to go on stage and like talk to people, like, talk through my juggling.
Yeah.
But what is
for me at this point? This is actually my break day. I practiced 3 days in a row. This is like the first time I've ever worked out 3 days in a row, probably in 15 years.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Thank you. I feel sore.
In a good way or in a bad way?
Because I was listening to your podcast about the 80% working out instead of like the 100%. Mm-hmm. I was using that, and that helped a lot.
Cool.
I think that I wouldn't have been able to do the 3 days.
Cool. Keep on doing it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of what I get out of it at this point, is staying positive, like getting the satisfaction from it. That's one thing that we get from, as jugglers, we get it's like you get that immediate feedback. It's like you either caught the ball or you didn't.
Right.
You were either juggling the pattern or you didn't. So if you're on the right track. And that's also something that's a kind of like a math part math thing, and there's a lot of people who love math because there's an answer.
Right.
So, in this world, there's not
there's
a lot of
answers. Definite, clear answer. It's correct or it's not.
Right.
It's black or white.
It's black or white. So with juggling, it's like you're getting that feedback all the time. Every time you catch a ball, you're like, okay, I got the feedback.
It's black or white.
Well,
although, from my perspective, I remember like the last performance you were there. I did, and I was talking about failure. Like, I missed the ball, but did I really miss? Because I just did like.
No, you missed.
I did how many tour of like the trick, and I did it for like 30 seconds, and people had time to see it and everything. But then, I still missed.
Yeah, you still missed.
Wow.
See, I
didn't catch the last ball, but I still did the trick.
From a technical point of view, you dropped the ball.
At the very end of the trick. But you still had time to see the trick. Missing would mean I start the trick and I'm not even able to do it, so you don't even know what I'm doing.
Well, maybe if you said that you intended to drop that ball, then you didn't, and who would know?
Yeah, so it's all about the reaction you have to the miss, to the drop. But I'm interested in what you're saying. Like, you're talking about the honesty and the direct feedback of juggling. Yeah. Like, you can't hide.
Right.
So there is a satisfaction, but it's also it can be hard because juggling don't lie. You don't.
Shakira and juggling. Shakira's hips and juggling. They don't lie. That's a Shakira song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hips don't lie. Juggling. You're not really supposed to sing. Yeah. So when someone says like "don't lie," it's really Shakira. So, but yeah. They don't lie. There's a vulnerability. You're out there. Everyone can see what you're doing. If you drop, you drop. But you can. The way that when I was juggling on tour around the country with bands and stuff, there was this thing because I had a built-in audience that when I was on tour I created basically or like found because I would seek out where there was to see some bands that night, and then I would go and ask them, the person putting on the show, would you like to see someone juggle fire on a 6-foot unicycle?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, yeah, okay. And can you put me in between because the bands are always setting up and these are in like garages. These are I don't think I even ever was or like a church or a basement somewhere. Mm-hmm. So
6-foot motorcycle in a basement.
Sure. Yeah.
How did you pull that off?
Right up to the Then I just hang from the ceiling. It's real easy. but you're also talking about maybe 20 people would be there, maybe 40. If 100 people would be probably not. So it's these really intimate environments, and also all these people are going there to see their friend's band, maybe a band from out of town that they like. They're not expecting to see a fire juggler. Mm-hmm. So that was really fun, and the response is like, oh yes, because it was something that they weren't expecting, and it's sort of my presentation of this was like in a way that was sort of tailored, and it's also because I'm in those communities, and I feel like I am part of that too. Mm-hmm. So it's not like someone from the outside coming either.
I know what you're talking about. I agree with you.
That was like really, in some ways, that was like at the height of what I was doing as a juggler, and it also informs like this sense of the vulnerability. I mean, I was out there on the road. This was in 2000. The year 2000, and I was out for like over 30 days. I think it was like 35 days. I show up in a town and didn't know one person. I didn't have a cell phone. I had a phone card.
Right.
You had the phone card that had the number you would dial. Like you'd have to punch in this like 16-digit number, and then it would say, well, what number do you want to dial now? So you wound up pressing like 50 buttons, to call home. And so I was just, it's like that was, but I didn't think twice about it. I was just like, this is what I want to do. Get in the car, go.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to be spontaneous. If you overthink things, especially in juggling, you don't do anything.
Let's say you have a school of juggling. I actually, in some ways, I was thinking about what I could do as far as teaching juggling, and I was thinking, well, like martial arts there's some similarities there.
Absolutely.
In a way. I mean, juggling is not a martial art, but
there's a dedication and a practice that's very similar to
it's very physical. You're using all of your bodies. There's like they're not like in a gym, but there's like mats. So I was thinking like these martial arts studios. So if you had a martial art juggling school, I mean, if you had a juggling school that seemed similar to a martial arts school in a way, like you had to, I mean, that also gets connected directly with like all those martial arts movies, you know, the karate movies. And those have their own sort of, meme tropes. Trope is like a meme. It's something that the story gets repeated over. Right. It doesn't matter what the maybe someone gets wronged, then they have to fight the person in the other village. Right. You know, all that stuff. So. If you watch a bunch of those, you can also start paying attention, as I was, to the schools themselves, because a lot of the times someone will wrong the master, and so the students will do something or feel a certain way, and they'll do something. So the way where my mind is when you're talking about the correct way of juggling, it's like you would be like the master, and the people who follow your way would
Yeah, but that's where I'm thinking. Juggling shouldn't be a dogma. And that's why I say first, yes, there's a correct way to juggle. And then what I say right after is everybody's different. We all have different bodies. And we're not going to end up, this correct form of juggling is not going to end up looking the same for everybody. And so there is a methodology of juggling that just is based on anatomy and physics. So it kind of applies to everybody, because physics does apply to everybody, and anatomy too, in a sense that we're different, but we mostly all have 2 arms, 2 legs.
We all have the
a head.
Yeah.
Like we kind of like have the same things in the same place, but with differences in like the subtleties.
Yeah.
So there's like a rule or like a methodology for like the physics of it. But then as soon as you start teaching it at an individual level for a person, for like an individual one person, then you get right into their bodies, their capacity, their way of being in a relationship with their body and how they're using their body, and then you adapt the technique to their bodies.
Sure.
So
I'm on board.
You know what I mean?
I'm
like,
on board.
No, but I like this discussion because it's really like getting into the details of like juggling and how, and I think why it is so complicated. Because I think if it was so easy to teach exactly one way to juggle, there would already be a school of juggling the same way you were saying, like martial arts, like schools. There would be one or maybe dozens, but there isn't.
But the thing that you'll like, so in the karate movies, the schools compete.
Right.
That's part of the sort of like the nature of them, and they're not only competing in the sense of they're competing in a lot of different ways. Part of it is almost like my master's technique is better than your master's technique.
Absolutely.
That comes up a lot.
And they think that because one is going to kick the other one's ass, it means that the technique is better, which is not true. It can be because of so many different factors. It's not only because of that. You know?
So that's...
I don't think the technique should be judged on, okay, my guy juggled 9 balls and your guy juggled 10 balls. And what? I keep seeing videos online of guys that juggle like 13 balls and they look terrible. Yeah, they look fucking terrible.
I liked what Anthony Gatto said, which was, it's like, yes, I see, you know, I can't do it. I don't know if you can do it or not, but like, I think at the time it's like, I can't do that. But at the same time, it's like you caught that on camera for one time, and that was like 4 seconds of your life.
Yeah.
And that's great, cool. But like, I'm, you know, doing a show every
twice a day,
three times, twice a day,
and I have to do it over and over again and not miss. So the guy's percentage of chance is like 0.0001% of doing the trick. I need to be at like 99.999% of doing the trick.
Right.
So it's the opposite sense of the spectrum. So yeah, I don't have any like world record of anything, but because my purpose in juggling is to be on stage, not to be an athlete, and that's the difference we're talking about.
So you don't want to be considered an athlete?
Oh no, yeah, I have no problem in being considered an athlete, because I think being an athlete is awesome. I don't think there's anything wrong with being an athlete, but in juggling, I think there's different schools of juggling in that capacity. Because some people have different goals. Some jugglers are seeing juggling as a sport. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in a way, I'm not doing the same thing. We were talking about it, like how juggling is so much more. It's like it implies physical skills, mental skills, mathematical skills, I think spiritual skills, like all kinds of skills. You have to like learn dexterity, flexibility, power. It's tapping in so many things that in a way I think reducing it to a sport is a reduction and not an empowerment of juggling. Juggling is more than that. Juggling can be a tool to express yourself, as I told you, as an artist. I don't think you can use sprinting as a tool to express yourself as an artist. You know, you're sprinting. You go from A to B and you try to go from A to B the fastest possible. How can you say something while you do that? Because your entire 100% of your focus is aimed at being as fast as possible.
Well, so if you're Usain Bolt, then you'll go like this. Like
right, you can try. So in a way, you can be an artist sprinter in like the quality of the movement and how you develop your technique, that you're going to have your own style while you're running. But it cannot be
not going to be the running itself in a way.
Yeah.
It's the personality of the athlete.
Yeah. And then it's like, it's going to be blue or green or pink, but that's it. And it's probably not going to change much during the career of the artist, because the career of the athlete, because it's their personality. Mm-hmm. As an artist, I can create an act that is going to be like this on Tuesday, and then 2 weeks later create an act that is going to be completely different. I have a range of expression. And I think when you reduce juggling as a sport, you're missing on all of that range of expression. And I think it's a shame to lose that.
I would be excited. I would love to see it in the Olympics. And I think that by being in the Olympics at that point, if there would be people who would be inspired to juggle. And to me, that would be the best part of it.
True.
And also to enjoy, to see it, you know, and to see what the outcome is, and to see how it, you know, how it's done, and like what, you know, what actually happens. But it would, I think the profile of juggling would be like, whoa, people would be like, wow, I want to try to juggle.
Yeah.
And I think, as we came to talk about earlier, was that jugglers like to watch jugglers, and jugglers are the better audience for jugglers too. A lot of jugglers go to see Jay Gilligan because jugglers want to watch Jay Gilligan juggle. Mm-hmm. So the more jugglers there are, the more of an audience there'll be for juggling.
Yeah. I think everybody enjoys a good juggling act, but the act needs to be good.
Well, it's
not boring.
It's a more like educated audience.
Right, absolutely. So that's for sure.
Yeah, if you have 100 people who don't know how to juggle at all, they'll look at a juggling routine and they'll be like, "Oh, cool." But if you have 10 people in the audience,
but that's not. I disagree with you.
Well,
Yeah, I disagree with you.
What's
Because as a juggler, as a professional juggler, I'm mainly performing with my juggling. I don't build my juggling performance for jugglers. I build my juggling performances for people everybody.
for the public? Yeah.
For the public.
Yeah.
And I assume they don't know how to juggle.
Right.
So I build it so they can appreciate the most. And I know that jugglers still appreciate what I do,
Right.
but I design my performances for an audience that don't know how to juggle. Because I know that I'm performing for them. If I was performing for a juggling audience, I would do something very different. But that's not my purpose.
I guess kind of what I'm saying is like, if there was 100 people watching you and no one knew how to juggle, they'd be like, whoa, you know, like they saw it and they're like, it's juggling, whoa, right? And if 10 people in the audience, they happen to know juggling, maybe because I've been in that, it's like my family's going to a circus and it's like, oh, there's a juggling routine. It's like all of a sudden, like I'm clued into that. I'm able to understand that more than my family.
Well, you're able to understand the technical part of it more, but
and the whole, I get a much
the
better
whole
sense.
artistic.
Oh yeah.
How
I get
so?
a much because I'm thinking, what if that was me? What if I had constructed that, or that's someone? I've constructed routines before, like this person and like the choices that they make, and you're like, oh, and it gives me ideas, or like, how did they do it this way? They're you know, if I was doing it, would I have done something different, and maybe I missed something, but that was my experience. And so whereas like my parents, it's, you know, my family, when we go to something like this, they walk out and they're like, that was a cool show.
Right, but they can't get into details like that. Yeah. Well, that's cool. You want to say something?
I just want to say thank you, CYRIL.
Sure. Oh,
This is great.
That was cool.
Really cool.
All right. Time to wrap it up. If you find this podcast valuable, you can support it in many ways. You can review it wherever you listen to it, first. Second, you can share it on social media with your friends. Good. More listeners, better for me. Or you can support it directly. Yes, you can now support the podcast directly by purchasing juggling props on playjuggling.com using my special link. I'm hoping it's going to be playjuggling.com/DWG. DWG for Dancing with Gravity. This is my direct link for you to get your juggling props directly from the factory in Italy at no shipping cost. Freaking amazing. Yes, free shipping cost just for you guys. On my end, I'll get a commission on any juggling equipment you buy using that link. So thanks for listening to the show, and remember, failure is an essential part of juggling, but failing is not the problem. The problem is not learning from your failures. So get out there, juggle, fail, learn, repeat.